for giving me your time of day today. Super excited and looking forward to this one specifically. I think this is our first interview on a crime tech startup, so I'm very excited to kind of jump into the details of that. But first off, would you mind telling your name, where you're at, where you grew up, went to college, and kind of all the story before you started Minecrime?
Absolutely, Grant. And my name is Giacomo. And first of all, I really want to thank you for inviting me here today. It's a pleasure to have the possibility to share, our experience, what we're doing, and all the entrepreneurial path that you are actually crossing day by day. Personally speaking, I'm currently located in Italy. As I was mentioning to you before, in the central part of the country, where we have our HQ of Minecrime, and where actually 99% of our team is currently located. But before, my company, actually, I of course attended, the university. I moved from Italy after the bachelor, the BSc. I moved to the United Kingdom back in the days where I've actually pursued, a path across crime analysis, which is like a vertical application of data analysis to crime and urban decay phenomena. So it's a discipline that is pretty much common and super well known across United States of America, United Kingdom, Anglo-Saxon countries in general, but absolutely not known almost at all in all the other countries around the globe, including Italy. So I went over there, I studied over there, and I had the possibility to start my professional career over there, working as a crime analyst for local constabularies, especially in the southern part of the country. And so, since day zero, I used to work quite a lot with data, especially data that is strictly related with crime phenomena and how crime normally evolves and distributes across urban areas, depending on the nature and on the characteristics of these urban areas. So while I was working in this specific domain, all of a sudden I found myself literally, in a super random way. So nothing was planned, but I was, I had the possibility to attend a workshop in the Bocconi University, which is a pretty famous and really well-known business university in the northern part of Italy, in Milan. And they were running this workshop on entrepreneurship. So they were talking about how you can transform in a super generalized way, but superficially, but they were talking about how you can transform your technical competencies that are part of your daily job into an enterprise by relying upon a proper market analysis, validation process of your MVP. So they were actually giving us initial tips about what does it mean running a company. And when I attended that specific workshop, literally, I was completely amazed by the opportunity of running a company. So nowadays, there's a sort of beautiful stories about running companies, startups, scale-ups, and really successful companies around the globe. But I never found myself in that specific domain. So that workshop was the initial kickoff, let's say something like that, for my entrepreneurial path. And that since that moment, while I was still working in the United Kingdom as a crime analyst, I started to study. And I started to study business management, innovation management, operational management. So I did quite a few professional courses on postgraduate courses on business management. And I started to understand in a better way, what does it mean running a company? So everything started from that workshop. And then when I attended that workshop back in 2017, if I remember correctly, I took more or less 3/4 years before creating Minecrime, so before creating the company, to get all the necessary knowledge and know-how that is crucial if you want to run a company. So better than me, running a company is not okay, I incorporate the company and it's done. So there's a lot of stuff going on. So that's super briefly.
I love it. No, I think that's great. There's in every entrepreneur story, there seems to be two kind of key turning points, and one is whenever they either found out about entrepreneurship, or somebody introduced them to it, or they some way of they decided, hey, I think I might want to do something myself, or I could, and then there's the other one where they find out this is what I want to do as an entrepreneur. So very interested to hear kind of the next stage of how did you come up, what does Minecrime do right now, and then what's the backstory behind it, and then why, if you were in the UK working on these things, why bring it back to Italy? If you said there was the degree and things, these studies were a lot more common in the US, the UK, but not so much in Italy. So sorry, that's three questions in one. I'd love to
that's all right.
The backstory of how you came up with the idea for Minecrime, what you're doing right now, and then kind of how you've had to adjust it for Italy.
I mean, actually, Grant, behind Minecrime, there's a pretty simple, but at the same time, quite relevant story. Because, when it comes to data on crime, the only countries around the globe that provide an open access database, centralized database, are the United Kingdom, and which is the best country in the world in terms of open dataness about crime, and then the United States of America, even though the United States of America is a little bit more fragmented compared to the United Kingdom in terms of databases. There are, in the United Kingdom, there's just one database for the entire United Kingdom. But in the United States of America, there's a database for each single state of the country, of the nation. So, but still there's open data about crime. If you go overseas, if you go out of these two countries, all the other countries do not provide geolocalized data on crime. They just provide general statistics about how crime is evolving at a province or regional level. So a pretty wide geographical, areas in the countries. And that was a problem because I used to work for the local constabularies, and we, the idea of Minecrime came out of a project that I was working on. It was much more, that this project was super focused on analyzing retail crimes. So those crimes, for example, commercial burglaries, shrinks, shoplifting crimes, that might be targeting and occurring in big, commercial centers, big retail store, okay? And, some of our partners are private companies in that specific domain, I don't know, a few names like Tesco or Top, Honad, so big retail companies with operations in multi-countries. So they were having retail stores not only in the United Kingdom, but they were having retail stores in France, Italy, Germany, Spain, whatever. So our job was cooperating with the constabularies of other countries to integrate our data with their data and see how, if we would have been able to identify common patterns, seasonalities, and use this type of information to support the security managers of the different regional areas to intervene and mitigate potential risks that might be occurring in those stores. And the thing is that I remember that I had, thousands of meetings with the constabularies of other countries saying, listen, we don't have the data. We were in a super positive position in the United Kingdom because we had super granularized and millions of geolocalized data. All the other countries did not. So there was a problem because when you have to implement risk mitigation procedures, but you don't have the data, you cannot do anything. And that's exactly when the idea of Minecrime came out of my mind, because while I was doing a lot of, apart from my daily job, I was doing a lot of online search about potential other digital platforms, social network groups, digital registries, online databases, semi-databases, where across all of these countries, people and local governments might be sharing their data on crime. Because I normally say, okay, it is pretty much impossible that all of these information are not in some way shared, retrieved, and provided, even at a local level. And I realized that there are thousands and thousands, and more than 30,000 different platforms online that, in a super individual way, but they collect thousands and thousands of data on a recurring basis, on a daily basis. So I said, like, wow, there's a massive amount of data over there that is not integrated. It's single platform. It's just all over the place. So if we are able to create an instrument, a platform, a tool, a software, call it whatever you want, that is capable of connecting all of these platforms, they are spread all over the place. They are super different one from each other in terms of data systematization. And to integrate all of these data all together in just one single database, we could create the very ever created first geolocalized database on crime and urban TK at an international level. That was the original idea. So starting from that idea, I tried to share this idea with the academia, because I had I was lucky enough to attend a conference in Italy, in the Università of Camerino, which is like one of the best universities in Europe for computer science, over here in Italy. And while I was there, I presented this idea. I said, like, okay, I mapped all of these different platforms. The only thing that I need to do is understanding if there's some, how to collect this data. And during this presentation, a couple of brilliant students, Samuel and Luca and Luke, so I call it Luke, Samuel and Luke, they were actually, they approached me at the end of the presentation. They said, listen, we have to run a project for the university, and we really love this one. If you're happy with that, we can create the first MVP for yourself. So we are going to be creating from scratch the initial version of Minecrime for free. But if you realize that with the MVP, there are market opportunities that could be, reached, we don't want money, we just want equity. Okay, so we want to become your co-founders, your partners. And that's exactly what has happened. They have created the first MVP. The first MVP actually was collecting only data from very few sources. It was around 20 to 30 data sources, out of 30.
I don't want to skip over that part, because I think that's really cool. And
that's right.
So
that's the story. That's how it began.
I think it's so cool because, as I always tell my students, they're like, oh, the non-technical students are like, I need to find like a technical co-founder and this and that. And, like, what am I doing? How do I find the right person? And like, okay, the hardest sell you're ever going to make is like to a co-founder of, here's why you should give up going and working at another company to work with me instead on this like high risk, startup. Instead, there's different ways to lower the risk. But it sounds like you did such a good job at pitching the idea and its validity and its value, like what it could be, that they said, hey, listen, and I think they also probably did a good job of lowering their risk. And this is just a project. If, we can get it out there, we can get it in our portfolio. If it doesn't work, hey, we got something that looks good on our portfolio. If it does work, then let's do this thing together. We like the idea, but let's test it out for a little while before we, commit the next 10 years of our life to it. So
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I think that's really cool. And I didn't want to skip over that part of how, everybody's asking, how do you find good co-founders? And you're like, be interesting, like start working on something and like start sharing it to the world. And like, you never know how you might find them. So, but
absolutely.
So I gotta say, please continue. We'd love to hear more about like I'm assuming you're working more with like local governments or local like cities.
Actually, not a lot. I mean, like our business model is pretty much business to business SaaS. So Minecrime is a software as a service, but we sell the software to super large corporates, like multinational companies. And that makes absolutely sense because if you consider that at an international level, when it comes to risk and security, there are some specific norms that large corporations that operate in those industries that are known as the critical infrastructure industries. So like transportation, oil and gas, utilities, telecommunication, banking. So they are obliged to put in place certain internal operations in order to, one, analyze risk and threats that might be threatening the security of their assets, B, implementing certain interventions that might be mitigating or reducing those risks. But the entire process needs data. You need data to justify which are and where are the threats. Secondary, you need to justify with data the investments that you're going to be making to mitigate those risks. So data is the core of everything. And before Minecrime, they were just relying upon general statistics that give you a general idea about crime and how it is evolving at a regional level. So imagine like a retail company that has 50 stores in a single city, okay? The only information that you might be having before Minecrime was that, I don't know, in the region that includes 100 cities, the total amount of commercial burglaries is 100 in the last month. But you don't know where they have occurred, when they have occurred, which are the characteristics of this single commercial burglary. So you don't know anything. You just know that they have occurred over there. Okay. So
it's harder to prevent them if you don't know the specifics.
Exactly. So like corporates need this type of data much more than government, because they have proprietary assets, they have private assets that they need to protect, and that sometimes they are worth millions of euros and dollars in value of these assets. So that's why we sell pretty good our platform to these big multinational companies. And the more they have fragmented assets in different regions and in different areas, the more Minecrime becomes fundamental. Because you can have like a scope with a street level detail about everything that happens in the areas where you have those assets. Local governments normally use Minecrime. We have some clients, it's less than 10% of our portfolio, but we have clients in the local governments, but they use our data much more for requalification processes, like, to understand how to intervene at the urban level to requalify a certain area, or like how to develop a new public services that might be encountering the needs of citizens, but they are less focused on protecting assets. And so that's why we consider our business model business to business.
Yeah. I think I heard it's like Walmart budgets every year for losing $3 billion in like stolen products.
Exactly. Exactly.
Like, okay. Like there are some companies that have been around for 100 years that don't have $1 billion a year coming in.
Exactly.
And Walmart's losing $3 billion a year. So it's most like small countries' GDP.
Exactly.
Like, insane. So perfect. Tell me where you're at right now with like, are you just in Italy? Have you spread to other countries? Where do you want to go in the next few years? Do you have any plans of like raising a round of funding, or what's the plan for the next few years?
So currently, in terms of operations, 95% of our clients are from Italy. They are multinational companies that operate in many different countries. So we are already collecting data. So our infrastructure is already collecting data from more than 70 countries. We are 74 countries around the globe. So our data collection process is super good. But our business operations are much more focused now on the Italian market, even though I repeat, I stress the fact that these are multinational companies. So we are already like running our software with the risk indicators and the risk model produced through Minecrime in many different countries. But our clients are 95% Italian. We have a small fractions of our clients, which is 5% approximately, that are from other countries. We have a couple of clients from the United Kingdom. We have a couple of clients from one from China and the other two, one from Brazil and other from Argentina. So they're pretty much spread all over the place. and because they actually need data and risk indicators for those areas where we are currently, capable of collecting and providing data. In terms of where we want to go, for sure, our technology goes faster than our business strategy, in the sense that the technology is growing super fast. So potentially we could be already ready to sell our product in those 74 countries. The problem is that we grew too fast compared to our internal structure. So now we are a little bit, slowing down. It's a choice that we made.
Explain that to me, because we don't usually hear, we usually don't hear about that problem until it's too late. So I'm glad you caught it before. A lot of my students watch the show, so I'd like to hear you kind of break down of like, you grew too fast. What do you mean by that? And what would you have done to prevent that? If you could go back in time, what would you have done?
Absolutely, Grant. Okay, this is we started our operations more or less 3 years ago. The first year and a half was pretty slow. The technology, kept growing super fast since day zero, but the business was a little bit slow. We are literally creating from scratch this market, this market niche. So at the beginning, we did a lot of awareness processes. So we try to explain to companies the advantages and the value proposition of our solution. So the first year and a half was a pure communication of the advantages and the values coming out of Minecrime. But then we realized after a year and a half, so at the beginning of 2024, there was a switch. Unbelievable. We moved from a few dozens of thousands of euros in revenues. Bam! All of a sudden, the market exploded. Companies, because our initial customers were super happy. They talked about Minecrime. We relied upon a proper PR communication strategy. So we invested in the right processes and the market exploded. So at the beginning last year, during 2024, we're super happy about, this exponential growth. And so we said okay, we take everyone, we are increasing, we are exploding with the revenue. So let's take every client as possible. At the end of the day, our model is pretty much lean, it's a software as a service. So you just sell, the KPI, the key to access the software, there's a subscription. So it's pretty much lean in terms of business model. But then we realized that the more we were growing in terms of portfolio, and the more the clients were still looking for a personal relationships with us. It's not a customization, it's just a sort of a customer management. Okay, so consider that they were multinational companies, so super big companies. So we don't sell the software to small, medium enterprises nowadays at the moment. They were looking for constant interactions that could have been ringing the phone saying, oh yeah, I found out this interesting insight using your software. It's fantastic. What we could do, in your opinion, what we could do with that, what we could do better in our processes using that type of information, and take this type of situation and multiply it for all of our portfolio, all of our clients.
So you're just on the phone all day with people.
Exactly. So the thing is that on one hand, you would like to, take down the phone and saying, okay, it's a software, just do it yourself. But at the same time, you realize that the attention and the need of your clients, it goes beyond the actual efficiency of the software. And the relationship that we want to keep with these clients is crucial, because the contracts are quite big at the moment. On average, every year, the software that we have goes from 70,000 euros up to 120,000 euros. So it's a quite big contract for each client. So you have a responsibility. It's not like a 10K that you're selling your software and 10K, 5K, but it's a quite big contract for each client. So, and considering that demand is, keeps growing, especially also from companies from other countries, we realized that we were almost collapsing. Like, in the last couple of months, I had quite a few meetings with my co-founders, Samuel, which is the CTO, and Luca, which is much more focused on operations. And we said, like, guys, we can't handle it anymore if we don't enlarge the team for managing these clients. But you know better than me that finding the right talent in terms of expertise, knowledge of the domain, knowledge of the industry, knowledge of the product. These clients normally ask for technical questions about the product. Like, you have to be prepared. You have to know what you're talking about. It's difficult and it takes time to find the right people. So now, like, we are trying to reach the team in that specific area to be capable of keep pushing with the scaling up process. So like to a couple of clients, we were obliged, for example, in the last week to say, listen, at the moment we can't process your request. We can surely be able to do that by the end of the year. And we tried, and then I close the answer to your question. We tried to transform from a communication point of view the fact that we are not capable to manage to handle any more clients, like a limited entry list to our software. So we tried. We thought, okay, how we can change the value of this message. If you say to a client, we can't handle it, it's too much for us, it's not good. So in the eyes of the clients, you're not technically structured to handle the request. So we said, like, listen, our software is like, it keeps growing, but we selected a limited amount of clients that are actually using it. If you want to use Minecrime, if you want to be one of the very first users for the next round of users, stay there. So we tried helped by our advisors to change that level of communication.
I love that. So there's one book I also always recommend to my students. It's the 22 Laws of Immutable Marketing. And one of my favorite law in there is the law of exclusivity. So you did a really good job of, I could either tell them, hey, we just can't handle anymore right now, and then that makes you kind of look bad. Or you could say, oh, we've only got a limited number of spots. So if you'd like to be one of those exclusive clients of ours, make sure to stay tuned and be ready for when we do. We want to give a catered service that's very specialized, and it makes it sound more exclusive than, hey, we're just at our breaking point. So
absolutely,
very good way of reshaping the narrative right there. I love it, man. Absolutely. We try to do that. Awesome. Well, I won't take up your entire day. I just got one last question I wanted to ask.
That's all right.
If like I said, I work with a lot of early stage and first time founders. You've been, a founder for several years now. What would you say is one piece of advice you'd like to give to first time and early stage founders so they can avoid, as they're starting their first companies?
Well, first, Brad, that's a really, really interesting question, because there are a lot of people talking about, the team, the business, the pitch, the MVP, the P&L. There are thousands of people talking about that. But in my opinion, there are two things that you have to bear in mind in order to avoid massive problems in the future, which is your co-founding team. And especially, it's not just a matter of co-founding team, but it's a matter of equity distribution. It's crucial, especially because if you don't pay attention to an adequate equity distribution, you might be finding yourself trapped in the cap table that you have created from day zero and being not capable of fundraising a penny, especially when you go through the pre-seed and the seed round. So the first rounds where, you normally raise a limited amount of money, you get diluted more than Series A, Series B, and Series C, because you already have a business model that is functioning, that is scaling super fast. no investors are going to invest in a company that has a cap table that is not, first of all, managed and fully controlled more than 90% of the cap table by those founders that are crucial for the company. So they are focused on business management and product, okay? And they are not operational. So they are not, they are, you know, at least 90% of the company needs to be held by these key figures, and they have to be fully committed with the company. There's no way you can avoid that. Like, you know, you cannot run a company and saying, okay, yeah, I'm going to be starting the company, but then I will, you know, keep working with my previous job and I will be doing 50-50. No, it's like for the validation, I'd agree with that. Before running a company, validate your product, validate your business model, keep working, you know, keep having and keep that job, keep your job. But when you realize that you have validated your MVP, that you're ready to launch your company, quit your job, 100% focus on the startup. And the second advice is, I don't know the English name for that, but, you know, when you create your company, you have the statute, which is like, you know, the document that set all the rules for your company. You know, in Europe, it's called the statuto, the statute. So it's like, you know, I don't know how to translate it.
I know what you're talking about. I can see it in my face. I'm gonna look up the definition later, and I'll put it on the video. So don't worry about it.
Absolutely, that's right, Grant.
It's the great thing about editing.
Exactly. I'm talking about that document because make sure that you have all the rules put in place that can be protecting yourself, your operational founders, and the actual people that might be bringing value to your company from situations where, like, one of the co-founders stop working and stop doing anything, or start making problems with the other founders, and you don't have any pieces of rules that can be used to take their problem out. So make sure that you talk with decent attorneys and lawyers that can help you to identify, just by asking to ChatGPT, like, you know, which are the set of rules that should be definitely included in the, you know, foundational documents of a company in order to avoid problems between co-founders, and you will have plenty of ideas to go through. These are my two pieces of advice, which are much more relevant, in my opinion, than preparing a decent business plan, paying attention to the P&L, preparing a good pitch, because you could be rocking and rolling with all of this stuff, but if you have problem with the co-founding team, you're done. You could be the best company in the world, but you could be fucked. It's over. Like, you know, so that's the critical thing that I really would like to
those are two amazing points. Kind of checking your thing. I would say, I like to ask this question because every founder or investor has a different opinion on what it is, and like, perfect. Everybody will, and like, it comes from experience, and that's perfect. I think this is definitely one topic or conversation I have a lot with my students of, I had one student this semester who, he started working on the idea with another student, and then she decided to like kind of drop off the team full time. So it was, all right, she still wants to kind of consult on it, and she started the whole thing and got the first revenue on it, but now she's not going to be on it full time, but I am. So you're like, how do we do this? And I think some of the, pieces of advice I give are like, one, like, go out and have dinner, don't drink, and never add alcohol to conversations like that. And just kind of hash out, like, here's what it means to me. Here's the amount of time I'm going to be putting into it. Here's what's important to me, and here's where I want it to go. And after that, you can kind of, you need to put out your number and be honest. Like, here's how much value I believe I bring to it, and then kind of figure it out from there. But it's just like every startup, every single one of these startups and problems and conversations is so unique to these individuals. And, having that rules sheet as well, I'll find out the proper name for it in a second. But having, that as well, adds a lot of value of like, well, we all agreed to this, you know, and like, here's what we said. So that, you know, no take backs. But
absolutely,
yeah.
absolutely,
Awesome.
absolutely, Grant.
Well, perfect. Giacomo, I really appreciate your time today. It's been a pleasure to get to talk to you, and
thanks
I hope
a lot.
To visit you in person sometime, maybe next summer. So.
Absolutely, absolutely, Grant. Thanks a million for it, and I'm at your full disposal.
Perfect. A pleasure. And I'll talk to you later. Bye.
Absolutely. Thanks, Grant. Bye-bye.